A Science of Change, podcasting by Gilmore Crosby, social scientist, author, and organization development professional since 1984. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. 2026 has begun, and I'm here with my first guest of the year, Chris Marsh, who is a leadership coach who resides both in Australia and Canada, currently in Australia. And so I think you're just going to give us a different twist on things, Chris. So just go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me on, Gil. I'm honored to be your first guest in 2026. So, as you mentioned, I recently just returned to Australia after living in Canada for 16 years. And prior to that, I lived in the UK as well. A lot of what I do is backed by my love of travel. So, I've been fortunate to travel a lot, coupled with my passion for leadership has helped me throughout my career. And what I'm doing currently, I work for a education institute out here in Australia, currently supporting six-figure business owners turn into seven-figure business owners, and seven-figure business owners move into eight. And I also have my own practice where I work with executives and senior leaders to help them become better leaders. So a lot of my work I absolutely love doing. So I'm excited to dive into this today.
Oh, well, I certainly share the enjoyment of travel and being able to do that for work, to have work take you to places is quite a blessing, really. Will you still be spending some of your time in Canada and some in Australia, or have you sort of permanently gone home?
Haven't quite figured that part out yet. I'm fortunate to be here, dual citizen of both amazing countries. In a perfect world, I would do summers in each, always chasing that summer, Gil. So we'll figure that out. But for now, Australia is home. Definitely loving being back with family, having a different twist on Christmas and summertime, as we shared before we jumped on. So just embracing the year ahead, excited for 2026. And Canada, I'll get back to this summer. I'm hoping to go back to watch some of the World Cup as well. We've got soccer or football, depending on which part of the world you're from. So I'm excited to get back and see a little bit of that as well.
Cool. Well, you contacted me, or sometimes it's someone that gets hired. They reach out, and
yes,
and so then we briefly got to know each other. And as you know, when I do coaching, I want to, as quickly as I can, work with the leader and the primary group they're in.
Yes,
because I want to see them interacting and not just interacting with me. But I liked what I heard as you described what you do, and so I guess I'd just like to invite you now to, like, can you what's a summary of what you bring to coaching that would help leaders?
So I really come from, it's a great question. I come from an operating lens is the best way I would describe it. I would consider myself commercially focused with leaders and leadership. So depending on the company that I'm working with, my last assignment or last opportunity that I had in the US, I actually had a client I was working with in the US before I moved back to Australia, was helping a new executive move into that role, someone who hadn't sat in that chair before. So that was something that I helped him with. And also similar to yourself, as you mentioned, you like to see how they interact. A lot of my work was around how he was communicating with the team. I sat with him for the first week, and I just noticed how he operated in meetings, one-on-ones, and just gave direct feedback. So a lot of that was around executive presence, leadership effectiveness, and just communication is a big part. I think you'll resonate with this, and I think a lot of people will. Communication is a key cornerstone of any leadership, I believe if you cannot communicate effectively, it's something that you need to master or continually master as soon as possible, because it's a skill which is ever evolving. And I don't think you can truly master communication as a leader. So, depending on the opportunity that I'm being engaged in, it's that. I also do corporate training, which I enjoy doing, strategic elements as well. So it's all encompassing what I do, and leadership. I truly believe is such a privilege, and that's why I love doing it. And I think, unfortunately, we live in a world where there is not a lot of great leaders and a lot of bad leadership. So I see a lot of that pattern in the work that I do and the conversations that I have with folks like yourself. And not to say there's not a lot of great leaders as well. I just think that we have people in different leadership positions who have not earned it, or they're not really correctly skilled or supported, or have the people or tools around them to be most effective. And the speed that everything is moving at right now, it just compounds and has a huge commercial impact and hits the bottom line. And that's why we do the work that we do in short.
Makes sense. I think most people get very little in the way of useful training or coaching in how
Yeah.
to lead and engage, and also how to follow. I
Mm,
find that a lot of leaders I have known, even the highly skilled ones, really want people to be open and honest with them
hmm
uh, from
hmm
below, and
Yes.
so their reports and people throughout the organization, they want them to, and they get pretty good usually at it if they work at it, at handling difficult messages. Like if people tell them they're an idiot, they may have to take a deep breath and make sure they understand, well, what is it it's exactly that I'm doing or saying that led you to that, and not just get mad at them or defensive. But they're often pretty cautious about what they say to the people above them.
Mm. Yeah, you see a lot of that. I think it's managing up and managing down. And to your point, I think you need to have you need to ensure your conversation is geared to the person sitting in front of you. You cannot have a one size fits all approach when it comes to leadership. If you're speaking to, let's say you're a middle manager speaking to your senior director or a CEO, that conversation is going to be different to your direct report, right? And I think it's important for anyone who's listening or in any different leadership position, is that sometimes we really need to, and I can be guilty of this myself, you got to slow down to speed up in a lot of different ways, and make sure you're asking the right questions of yourself and others. I think is huge. To your feedback point, I remember myself when I first became a leader, I wasn't the greatest leader for sure, but I was definitely someone who was adverse to feedback. And then as I become as I become more comfortable with feedback, it was then something I would solicitate as part of my own growth journey. So it just, there's many different iterations and processes that you need to go through as a leader. And I think the biggest thing you can do first is stop taking things personally. As soon as you can get over that part, then things are going to get a lot more comfortable, and just really focus on what enables you to become a better leader.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you're not creating, an atmosphere intentionally where you're encouraging people to tell you what they really think about the organization, about you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then you're not going to know what they actually think. There's just going to be so much you're not going to know, and that's going to inhibit your effectiveness. So I
Mm-hmm.
think encouraging openness about work, and then being skillful at responding to it, is pretty critical. Uh, and I think most skillful leaders, almost universally, are overly cautious about how what they say to the people above them. And I think that then actually makes them, if the people above aren't really getting the straight message,
Mm.
I think that's going to get in the way more than it's going to help. So that's I just am talking about this because I think it's one of the hardest things to overcome is
Mm,
CEOs being cautious with the board,
mm,
VPs being cautious with the CEO,
yeah.
even though they're really good at being straight and listening and stuff with everyone else.
Mm.
Uh, anyway, I don't know if there's a magic pill for that or not, but
Yeah. Gil, do you see that due to people not being truly authentic, holding a veil over themselves, or they don't want to give away themselves as such and show a little bit of weakness?
I think it's. I mean, those two things kind of go together,
Mm, mm,
but I think it's that they're not being that they're being authentic with everyone but the person that they report to,
mm,
and it's just and it's the same fear that people below them have. The fear that, of course, the ultimate fear is I'll get fired.
yeah.
Uh, so, which it's pretty rare. I mean, it does happen, but uh,
Yeah.
I I know I contract with each person I work for.
Mm,
Uh, do they want me to tell them if I'm troubled by anything they're doing or saying?
hmm.
And they all have said yes, and
Yeah.
when I've had that moment, people have received it well.
Mm,
Uh, and I still get scared I'm like, I may have a guy. I'm working all through his organization. I could work for years,
mm,
and if I and yet he just talked for an hour in a meeting and didn't really pause to ever listen to his people.
mm,
Do
yeah.
I tell him that, or do I just go ahead and keep working on everybody else, and play it safe? And I know
Yeah.
I want to tell. I want to tell. I want to take the risk, but so I can put myself in their shoes.
Mm, yeah. I think and that's the value that we really bring as coaches and advisors is that we can't always see what we want to see. There's always going to be blind spots, and you don't have the ability to see 360. So I think it's important to have that sounding board. And if you're not asking those critical questions, to your point earlier, of what I do well as a leader to your superiors and also people that are reporting to you, then you don't really have an idea. And I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who's changing careers this week, and he was just telling me he hasn't had a one-on-one with his leader in 20, I think it was 15 years that he's been there. He just runs his own show. He's not really a leader, and he's now leaving that company due to it. It's just some people just don't care enough to do anything but what they know.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that worked to some extent. It must have for 15 years.
Yeah, I think so. I think people just get into the same pattern. You get comfortable. You don't like to disrupt the normal flow, so you just get stuck doing the same thing over and over again. But that's not a lot of growth going to happen in that space if you just
Sure.
stay comfortable.
Do you have like a particular leadership model that you
Yes,
use?
so I've created a coaching framework which I call the success coaching framework, and this has been built and I continually tweak it over the years. And it came from just working with different people and through my own work experience as well, is that everyone defines success differently. If you were to ask 10 people what success means to them, you're most likely going to get 10 different answers. So I built a coaching framework which I walk everyone through, and it follows the acronym success. And I'll walk you through each of those. So the first one is set goals and scope. So we look to clarify what are the priorities, what are the outcomes that we want to work on together, and then we want to establish the standards that drive meaningful business impact depending on the role and the impact of the role that they're doing. Secondly, understand and uncover. So similar to the points we mentioned earlier, identify any blind spots, leadership patterns, good or bad, team dynamics that influence the overall performance and decision making. Again, this typically would happen if you have visibility, you're sitting down, seeing how they interact with others, or if you have the opportunity to do 360 feedback as well, where you can ask feedback for people below that report to them, or he or she reports to them. Then C would be create solutions and cultivate the mindset. So we wanted to, I walked them through how do we develop clarity, the executive presence, and the tools to lead with confidence under pressure. So whatever that looks like for the individual. And then we look at C is committing and building capacity. So how do we turn insight into capability, strengthen communication, influence delegation, and team alignment, depending what we identify in the previous steps. And then we want to, the next is execute and elevate. So that's translating strategy into consistent action. We track progress, refine, and we identify early wins. Always important to identify early wins. And the last two S's is around just really making sure that these practices are embedded. So stakeholder engagement and support. So strengthen cross-functional relationships, communication, and then align the leadership growth with the business priorities. And lastly, as I said, S is about sustaining results that endures. So making sure that we're embedding habits, the systems, and the behaviors that scale across the team and support long after the time that we have worked together. So that's the framework that I continue to build out, and it's worked pretty good over the last couple of years as I've been working with individuals, teams, and also organizations.
Cool. It's important to have some sort of model or framework in mind, I think, uh, so that you have some at least alignment around what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The only thing in there that I have some trepidation about, I guess you could say, is the 360s.
Yes.
And
Yep.
for me at least, now I got taught this by my father, who started back in 1953, uh, and was influenced by Kurt Lewin's inner circle, including Likert, who created the Likert scales that are used in those any kind of survey data.
Yeah.
But basically, the tool when surveys were used originally, it was for dialogue with the people who actually filled out the survey.
Okay.
And that's what I've been done all my life, is helped leaders and their teams have live dialogue. And I realize people are afraid and think that the only way to be honest is to be anonymous. And yet I think that what I certainly prefer is that they learn how to do their best to talk to each other directly, so that they can explore the feedback, because then there's skills that go with that. Like, people use judgment words like micromanage. Well, if they just write that down and say, you micromanage, and the person doesn't know who said it and doesn't have a conversation, there's no way to know really what they mean by it, because for some people that means you have me fill out a report every Tuesday. For others, it means you check my work every day. For others, it means I want to be able to do certain things and make certain decisions. There's specifics that are important to surface, so you can decide about whether to do things the way you want to do it, do things the way the employee wants to do it, find something in the middle. Anyway, so that was the only piece of all that I'm sort of a long-term critic of, is the 360 stuff.
Yeah, and I only say that because it is a tool that I offer. It's not always taken up on because, to your point, different organizations have different level of surveying or ways that they like to deliver feedback. So depending on how they operate, it may not always be effective. And I agree, if it's possible to get direct feedback that way, or it's it's a lot better than an anonymous survey, if I'm understanding what you're sharing. I've worked in big corporations where you get an annual survey sent to you and every feedback is anonymous.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course people are brutally honest to share their thoughts around different things and benefits and how their leader interacts and the company values. So yeah, I definitely see value to different approaches. It just depends on what
Sure.
your overall goal is, right?
Yeah, and in a team, I don't know, you probably want this too. I want people to figure out how to talk about difficult things.
Yeah, and Gil, that's not easy for a lot of people. A lot of people are confronted by that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think people who are not naturally sitting in a leadership seat, let's call it, may be adverse to conflict and having those conversations. And it's only through years and years and years and hundreds of conversations that I now feel very comfortable. When I first started out, it wasn't always easy. So it's a process which takes time and practice, but it's the best way, to your point, to get everyone on the same page and to be effective. Because if you can't communicate well, then you're not going to have great organizational effectiveness and high performance amongst your team and the greater organization.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And so we my associates and I we work with T groups, which is a small group methodology where you learn from your immediate interaction with the other person,
Yeah.
and then we layer in conflict skills, and for the very reasons that you're talking about this. Whether you're a leader, formal leader, or an informal leader, if you don't know how to talk about touchy subjects, touchy work subjects, and figure out how to move forward together, then it's certainly going to get in the way at times.
So how do you approach that? What do you do? Do you do it in a group coaching setting or a smaller group?
Well, I often just get with groups, and if possible, it's a mixture of, like the hourly workforce and their supervisor, for instance, and have them spend time identifying what's in the way of getting the work done, and then have them talk about what they can do about it. And before that, I teach a little, not, maybe 30 minutes, but I spend time on something called the Interpersonal Gap, which is a way of looking at how easy it is to have misunderstandings with other people and then blame them for it. And so it's just a way to help people sort of calm down a little and take responsibility for what's happening between them and others when they start to have some emotional intensity. So Kurt Lewin always had some training. He believed that you had training, then you had action, and then people would assess the outcome of the action, like you're talking about people executing and implementing and sustaining. So they'd have ways of like monitoring any action and then assessing the outcome. But along with it always came some training and basic behavioral skills. And so that's how we approach it, is by doing some training and then having people talk about what's most important for them to be talking about.
The interpersonal gap is, maybe I'm not framing that correctly. Did you just see that through your work and then you built that out?
No, it's a model created by a guy named Wallen, who actually worked with Dad for about 20 years.
Oh, okay. Never heard that.
Yeah, so John Wallen, I could send you.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
The Interpersonal Gap, I could send you a little survey feedback process too. It's I mean, sometimes it's as simple as having a group at the beginning of a meeting rate on a 1 to 10 scale or 1 to 5 scale. Are we headed in the right direction?
Mm.
And then if not, well, what's in the way? What's going on? What do you need to talk about? And then what can you do about it? Whatever it is. I mean, that's a simple survey feedback process.
Yeah. And hearing that, I think that's in a lot of ways, and all these different gurus, we've overcomplicated leadership in a lot of different ways. And leadership, when you break it down, when I hear a simple exercise or framework like you've just shared, it's simplicity is always the most effective way when it comes to leadership. It's one human helping another human move from A to B. That's what we're
and
doing.
they're interdependent. They need each other, and
Yeah.
that's why how am I following is just as important as am I leading, I think.
Mm. And when you say following, that's following the leader's actions or just following in general?
Well, like for instance, I work a lot with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's my younger brother, 5 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's his customer, he's the lead. And if it's my customer, I'm the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he's leading, I want to do my best to tell him what I think about, like if I think there's a better way to do something than what he's doing, I'll tell him. And then it's up to him to decide. And then whatever he decides, I'm going to support him in that. And if he needs a cup of coffee or needs to take a little rest while I lead or something, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do my best to help him lead.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. So that's what I mean by followership. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a responsibility everyone has, whether they realize it or not. Are they really giving their boss the truth about what they think is happening in the processes?
Mm-hmm.
Without tearing people down, but without inhibiting themselves too much.
Yeah. When I hear that, it just reminds me, and I speak about this often, you don't need a title to be a leader. We're all leaders in our own rights.
Yep.
You can be a leader at home to your partner, to your kids, to your friends and family in your communities. It's all based on your actions. And leadership is a verb, it's an action.
That makes sense. And, going back to my main source, Kurt Lewin, he thought everyone is trying to influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you effective in your attempts? It's something to pay attention to. We all want to influence our spouse, our families, our nations, our work groups.
Mm-hmm.
And are you even aware that you're trying to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you inhibiting yourself by saying, well, I'm not trying, I don't want anything. I'm not trying to get people to be different. When actually you are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's somehow bad or something? Anyway, and then how do you become more and more effective at influencing? And that includes getting it that other people are responsible for their own choices and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
You can only influence so much.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with yourself is wise. It's hard enough to influence others.
And that's a great point. Leadership really starts with yourself. You need to be able to have self-leadership before you can effectively lead others, to your point.
You seem pretty open-minded. I mean, this is an interview, but I'm certainly doing my own share of the talking about theory and so on and practice. So I appreciate your receptiveness.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I just love talking about leadership and hearing different frameworks that I haven't heard of before. I appreciate that different perspective, and it's refreshing to hear it broken down just so at such a simplistic level. And as I said, I think we've just overcomplicated leadership in a lot of different ways, and we see leadership being used in such for the wrong reasons. And I truly believe leadership is an absolute privilege, and you're given the responsibility to help others be better. So we need more effective leaders in the world, and that's why I think the work that you and I both do is so important.
Well, I'll send you a little bit of stuff when we're done with this, including because for me, I didn't realize it. I started working with my dad in '84, and he told me this name, Kurt Lewin, and so on, and some simple stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it until like 30 years later, 35 years later, that everything I was doing came from the source. And then I started really digging in and studying the source. I wrote a book about Kurt Lewin, and but for me, I feel fortunate because I have a framework from Lewin that's pretty clearly just says things like, if the people who are facing the problems come up with their own solutions, they're more likely to implement them successfully.
That's coaching right there.
Yeah, and okay, right. So it simplifies my task a lot because I don't have to be smarter than the other people. I have to be good at helping them get clear about what they think and what they want.
Yeah.
And so I'll send you a little summary of that stuff also when we're done here.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that. I think I've never, full transparency, I've never heard of him before, so I would love to see the framework. But I resonate with what you said. We are just guides helping people come up with solutions, and you're far likely going to follow through with something when you think you're the creator of the solution versus being told as a consultant, let's say, that this is the way you should do it. And that's the effectiveness of leadership. And do you see that in a lot of organizations? I'll ask you this, Gil, do you see where a coaching leadership style embedded within organizations is more effective versus other styles in the work that you do?
I think what I see, Chris, is that leadership and consultants in most organizations, or consulting to most organizations, think that they have to come up with the solutions and then somehow get the organization to do them. And it just becomes a fight instead of tapping into all the people in the organization who already know that they need spare parts and that they need to have the potholes in the floor fixed. And, that they're thinking about the problems that are right in front of them that are getting in the way of the work. And the CEO is usually pretty unaware of those things. So they're usually thinking something like, well, we need lean manufacturing or total predictive maintenance, and so they're trying to stick in systems. And down below, people are sick of having stuff stuffed on them, and are sick of not being listened to. And so, that's the biggest gap to me, is that management and often their consultants try to do all the thinking. And I don't think it's that hard to change that, really. It's as simple as you get each work team to take some time out to talk about what's in the way of the work and to come up with some solutions and start implementing the solutions. And the hourly workers have all kinds of ideas. It helps to have some structure to that, but that's all I do. And the systems that really get after it immediately have higher productivity, higher morale, better safety, better quality, all the stuff that management's seeking. So that's it. I think there's an imbalance of who's doing the thinking, and And then people blame the workforce and say, well, they aren't engaged. Kids these days, they just don't care.
Yeah, it comes from what I'm hearing in that it comes down to asking better questions and better group thinking.
Yeah, you got to organize it too. It's
And do you have a set of questions that you walk through, or do you just open it up to everyone? I imagine you would have to have some framing.
Well, really, more and more, I just get with the supervisor and the crew, and I teach people to do this without me, and have them spend some time talking about what's in the way, and then once they've organized that and narrowed it down some, you have there's methods to sort of like shorten, like if there's 100 items that are in the way, then you narrow it down. There are some methods for organizing brainstorming and dialogue, and then narrowing it down to a short list. And then they do the same thing, come up with solutions. What can we do about this stuff? And they're always going to have like 10 pretty solid solutions. And then they have to implement and monitor and do the stuff you talked about with the execution and the sustaining. Part of leading is managing. I think they're not.
Yeah, they're two different
they're in a way they're two different sets of behaviors, but they have to be united. If all you do is lead and you don't manage, then stuff isn't gonna get done if you don't monitor, if you don't have a way of supporting people. And if all you do is manage and you don't lead, then that's you're certainly not going to get anywhere.
So in your experience, managing is for managing the task and in making sure that things are being embedded and followed through, where leadership is more around the influence side of things.
Yeah, and maybe the big direction.
The vision.
But I think the leaders have to manage. And if they think they can just say, okay, we're going to take that hill, you guys figure out, you guys get it done, I'm going to go take a break. Something like that. Then, God knows what's going to happen. Maybe they'll get lucky, but.
Yeah, that's where they need to lead by example and set the tone.
Yep, and charge up the hill with them and figure out what the conditions are and make adjustments. And listen to people when they say, hey, there's a bunch of enemy soldiers on the other side of this pile of rocks or whatever. You gotta, if you don't know what's actually happening, then I also don't think you can lead then.
Yeah, you got to be brave enough to step forward first.
Yep, and then to stay connected, in touch with what's going on, not just sit in your office.
Yeah.
Or in meetings. If you just sit in meetings all day, it's going to backfire.
Yeah, I think there's a big disconnect. I see that a lot, to your point, where people sit in executive or senior role, where the disconnect between senior leadership and the front line is huge. They don't really understand the challenges, the pain points to help the organization. They just sit in meetings, to your point, all day, and there's a huge disconnect and builds a lot of resentment from the front line when people don't listen.
Yeah, and it's hard to even have the conversations if they don't see each other enough. If the boss is always gone.
Yeah. You need that level of visibility and transparency.
Yeah, I think you really do. Well, so Chris, are you getting what you wanted here?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Gil. This has been a refreshing conversation, and just, I think, to everyone, a reminder of the simplistic nature of leadership, and you don't really need to try and look for a secret sauce, or I think people are really trying to overcomplicate leadership. And I think with different things such as AI that have come into the landscape and overcomplicated things. This has been a refreshing conversation, even for myself. So I look forward to doing some deeper reading into the gentleman you shared earlier in the framework of the work that you do. So thank you.
Sure, sure. The Australian that sticks out in my head the most. I've worked with a few.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
be fair, some of them were, each one of them was different. It wasn't like there
Yeah.
was just one
Yeah.
type of Australian. They all like to drink a lot of beer. Uh,
I'm a poor Australian, Gil. I'm not really a beer drinker, and I
okay,
feel
okay.
I feel more Canadian than I do Australian right now. I'm working on that after just moving back. But I I, I moved to Canada when I was late 20s, so
Uh,
I feel my most formative years I lived in Canada. So I'm more familiar with the Canadian culture, and I'm assimilating back into the Australian culture and becoming familiar with it again. So I'm a poor Australian is what I like to say right now. But
that's
getting
funny. I was thinking that you seem really nice.
Thank you.
And at least the Australian that sticks out in my head, whom I really liked,
Yeah, yeah,
he didn't respect me until he was mad at me. And I sought him out on this big bauxite refinery, and I confronted him about it, and
yeah.
we had a fight, basically, we verbal, and
Goodness.
and he was like, until that moment,
Yeah,
he just thought I was some damn consultant that the managing director had hired, which is true. And he was so frustrated because nobody in the whole place, this was in Jamaica,
yeah, yeah,
would would speak up to him. Nobody
yeah,
would. They were all scared of him, and so after I spoke up to him,
yeah,
uh, our relationship, became much more collaborative.
yeah,
But he really valued just open fighting.
yeah. I think that's my
It's my
understanding.
stereotype of Australia.
Yeah, Australians. My experience has always been Australians can be very direct to your point, and I think
Uh-huh.
we can be abrasive to a point, and you always know where you stand with this with Australians. Typically, I think your laughing confirms that as well. So I think that's my understanding of it, and I'm re-understanding that as the months go by.
I think it's a strength for the most part.
Yeah,
He realized as time went by he had work to do to help reassure his subordinates that
yeah.
he that it was safe for them to say things to him and so on. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing. That was great.
yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, is I think this is what I was hoping we would do. This kind of conversation. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners, like how to get a hold of you, and of course, if they contact me, I'll also direct them your direction. But
Thank
or anything else you want them to know before we wrap this up?
Thank you again for the great conversation, Gil. In terms of getting in contact with me, two ways. I post regular content on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I post twice a week, typically sometimes 3 times a week, around leadership insights, also future of work, and any other things that I see happening. So you can connect with me there. Feel free to shoot me a DM, always open to conversations. Secondly, I publish a bi-weekly newsletter called The Leading Edge, talking about leadership. So feel free to join me there. And thirdly, you can get in touch with me via my website, which is one word, chrismarchcoaching.com.
Okay, I'm looking at you on LinkedIn. Fine looking fellow. You look Australian.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if that's a compliment anymore, but I'll take it, and make sure you connect with me, Gil, please.
It's a compliment for me at least. So, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to call this a wrap then.
Again, thank you for the conversation. Thanks for everyone who listens in. If you have any questions or comments, feedback, feel free to reach out to me on one of those 3 different channels. Thanks again.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Chris, and thank you, listeners. Take
Thank you.
care. Hey, I appreciate you listening. This, again, is Gil Crosby, and I want you to take advantage of what's available to you. I have many free materials. I am happy to talk to people about their situations, especially if you're trying to create change, either social change or organization change. We have frequent workshops that are available, T group workshops. If you have never been in a T group with us, then don't miss it in your life. It's many people have said to me, of all the trainings I've ever received, I got this one 30 years ago, and it's the only one that stuck with me. You're learning from your actual interactions with the other participants and with the faculty. The faculty are walking the same talk that they're teaching of behavioral skills. It's a training workshop. That's what the T stands for. This is done in the spirit of the creation of T groups by Kurt Lewin and his associates. It's for groups. It's for teams. That's how it was originally designed. It is a opportunity to learn about theory and put it directly into practice. Again, the original design, you learn things and then you put them into practice. It was not just all ambiguity, which is how some T groups, most are led today, where the faculty hardly says anything. That's not how this is designed. So join us for that. There's always workshops. There's the Leadership Institute of Seattle, a 2-year program where you will learn from T groups and learn how to do all the organization development work that my father designed, most of it, and I continue that practice alongside my brother Chris and many other associates. So don't be a stranger. There's a lot going on. It's always changing. So be in touch, and it's on the website, crosbyod.com. I look forward to working with you in your organization or as you pursue things like reducing gun violence and decreasing racism in our society. Whatever your goals are, the social science of Kurt Lewin guides how to achieve those goals in a reliable way. And so that's what I apply and practice every day. And I invite you to do the same. Together, we can create high productivity and morale in organizations. We can create stronger foundations for democracy. We can create a better world.